Greetings, my scattered brothers and sisters in the Lord. Today we are moving into John chapter 10. Even though it's a new chapter and we get some new metaphors, it's still pretty much the same setting that Jesus has healed the man who was born blind. He has been interrogated about it, the blind man was, and the blind man pointed people to Jesus, and the Pharisees have come to Jesus, and Jesus has led the blind man to not just seeing, but to faith. And the Pharisees continue to reject that Jesus was sent from God. We move into chapter 10, but it's still the same conversation. There's been no shift of location, no shift of scene. And so it appears that Jesus is still speaking to the Pharisees as well as to his disciples who are with him and whoever will listen to him. He uses some new images or metaphors. He says that I am the gate and I am the good shepherd. And so the shepherd-sheep imagery is what shapes the next few paragraphs in the Gospel of John, the teaching of Jesus here. And the background for this is that Israel's king, Old Testament, was considered to be a shepherd, and the people were a flock. And ultimately, God is the shepherd and Israel is the flock. And so we have this kind of shepherding imagery going on. And in Jesus' day, sheep were kept in a pen. Maybe several families kept their sheep in the same pen. And then there was a gate to that pen and possibly a gatekeeper. And then each family shepherd would call the sheep out of that pen and lead them to pasture and then return them to the pen. And the gatekeeper was there to make sure that the sheep properly entered and exit the gate and that no one could gain access to the sheep that wasn't authorized. So Jesus is going to use this common imagery to teach about himself and also to teach about what he has to offer his flock and who his flock is. So it'll take us a few days to unpack all of this. The main thing I want to get at today is Jesus asserts that the sheep know the shepherd's voice, and so his sheep know his voice. Again, you can see kind of the imagery that Jesus would be drawing upon. You have kind of a community sheep pen, if you will, and then a shepherd comes to get his sheep, not all of the sheep out of the pen, but his particular sheep. And he does this simply by calling them, and the sheep know his voice. And so the sheep follow their shepherd, and they will not listen to the voice of a stranger. They won't follow the voice of a stranger. And so Jesus is asserting that his sheep know his voice and they will follow him. And he goes on to say that he is the good shepherd. And so, kind of by implication, the Pharisees don't recognize who Jesus is. They don't know his voice. They're not really of the sheepfold, if you will, of God. But people like the blind man recognize the voice of Jesus, and so they're following him. And so today, really just kind of one question. Do we recognize the voice of Jesus? What voice or voices are we answering to? His sheep know his voice, and they don't get led astray. They won't listen to the voice of another. They recognize the voice of Jesus, and Jesus is the one that they're going to follow. We need to be sure that we recognize his voice, that we listen to his voice, that we don't get led astray following voices that really aren't our shepherds, that we don't belong to them. At that point, the sheep might be a little bit smarter than us, because sometimes we go after wrong voices. So I guess if Jesus is the good shepherd, our challenge is to be good sheep, to hear his voice, recognize his voice, and listen to him and not be led astray. God bless. Have a great day. Listen and follow well. Be a good sheep.